All right, thank you for watching. This is the Porsche overview for the casual fan. I am a casual fan. I've always liked Porsches. I don't own one, but I hope to in the future. But this is a quick overview of Porsche. Hope you like it. So let's talk a little bit about the origins. So the company itself was founded in 1931. That's about 89 years now, almost 90 years. It was founded in Stuttgart in Germany, and of course Ferdinand Porsche was the founder. Initially in 1931 they actually started not by building cars, but doing a lot of the development work and consulting. They built engines mostly, and you'll see in a few slides they built not just engines for motor cars, but for other things like airplanes and such. But they first started building motors. They started developing cars themselves, consulting. One of the first projects they actually worked on was the Volkswagen Beetle. And then in 1945, Ferdinand's son's Ferry, he decided to build his own car. That became the 356. And that was road certified in 1948. And then we'll see that the 356 soon enough becomes something else. And it wasn't really Ferdinand Porsche himself who built things like the 911, but others that followed. So of course I've been using the pronunciation Porsche. That is the proper pronunciation. You'll hear Porsche a lot, and I think you'll hear Porsche probably more in the U.S. In other places, they kind of know that it's Porsche, but I've heard Porsche and Porsche. I've heard them both. I hear them all the time, even a lot of YouTube videos. So, I'm not a stickler for these things, but just want to let you know that Porsche is the proper pronunciation. If we look at the Porsche logo, it's actually a combination of a couple things, along with Porsche on the top. You'll see that the crest itself is the Weimar era Württemberg coat of arms, and then they put the coat of arms of Stuttgart in the middle. The Weimar Württemberg isn't around anymore, but they had some cool coat of arms back in the day, and Porsche decided to put a few of these together to make the iconic logo. The headquarters and museum, and it's not just the cars that I think are made really well. It's also the facilities that they have. There's the headquarters and the museum, which are both in Stuttgart. And that is in Germany. I've been to Germany. I haven't been to Stuttgart. I wish I would have gone there. Last time I was there, I was in Munich. From Munich, we went to Dortmund. In Dortmund, I took a train, but I haven't yet been able to go there. But I'm hoping to go soon. But if you're in the U.S., there's actually a couple of Porsche experience centers. There's one. Maybe 6 hours, 6-hour drive from me in Los Angeles, and then the other one's in Atlanta, and they're both kind of cool. You can go, you can drive a few of the cars that they have around. Of course, it's not free; you have to pay for it. But if you are interested in maybe different models, there's a lot of talk about should you get a 911 for the purist. Actually, some of the purists want them just air cooled. Now they're water cooled as well. So some will say go down there, drive a Cayman, compare it to a 911, try like the S, the GTs, or the GTSs, see what you like before you buy one. These are not cheap vehicles. You will be spending a few bucks, so might as well spend a few $100s and figure out what you want, and also learn how these things handle if you haven't spent too much time in Porsche. So if you are in the US on either coast, you can go check out the Porsche experience centers. Now let's take a quick look at Ferdinand Porsche. As we mentioned, he started Porsche and started actually also at Volkswagen. He was around from 1875 to 1951. And there are some things that folks like about him. The picture I have is that's actually Porsche with Hitler. So during World War II, he was actually designing motorized weaponry like tanks for Nazi Germany. And he was actually arrested for 20 months for war crimes. And during that time, actually Ferry Porsche, he was actually looking at what he would build. He built the 356, and then he went on to build the 911 and kind of take over from his father. So he was around from 1909 till 1998. He was the designer. He was the CEO at some point. He also worked with Abarth, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Daimler. And those are companies or car models. Like there's the Fiat 500 Abarth, and then Daimler, Benz. He actually worked with the actual people, not just the company. So pretty interesting. And he was around for a long time. Just did, the 911 is iconic, and it was all thanks to Ferry Porsche. Currently, there's Dr. Wolfgang Porsche. He's the grandson of Ferdinand, 77 years old. He is now the chairman of Porsche AG. And as you'll see, the ownership has kind of changed around a few times. Currently, it's owned by Volkswagen AG. They bought into the company in 2009 for $3.9 billion. Not really a controlling interest, but in 2015, they had accumulated enough shares, 52.2%, so that they did have a controlling interest. And now pretty much you'll see that Volkswagen owns and controls. So if you look at things like, they also own Audi. So if you look at the Cayenne, if you look at the Touareg, and then I think it's the Q7 or the Q5, they're all sharing platforms. So there are some things where they try to save some costs on tooling because they do own them. And then they do have a couple of subsidiaries. They have 29% share in an engineering and designing firm, Bertrand AG. And then they're also almost 82% in another, I'm not even going to try to pronounce it, firm. And then in 2018, they acquired 10% of Rimac that was doing electric sports cars. I don't know if this has grown since, but Rimac really hasn't been creating too many cars. It might be just a technology thing to get, to be able to develop the things like the Taycan. All right, so here are some things that until I started researching, again, as a casual fan, I wasn't too sure about, but Porsche made tractors. There's still some tractors out there. The one on the bottom is really cool. Logo is exactly the same, that Porsche diesel. And then the one above it, again, you can see how they have like the Porsche lettering with the metal across the bottom, which is still kind of what they do on some cars, like when they have the Carreras. So it's pretty cool. I did not know that they made tractors, but now I do. Found a couple interesting ones here. They also had the aircraft engine, the Porsche PFM 3200. This thing, for what it is, for when it was used, this thing looks awesome. I saw many pictures, and they're all beautifully restored. The Porsche, while it's been iconic, the business wasn't always great. In the late 90s, business was bad for everyone, but especially Porsche. I mean, the 911, they were selling some, but it wasn't at the volume where they would make profits like some other manufacturers. You had folks like Toyota building millions of cars, while Porsche was, selling, in the hundreds of thousands. So the Cayenne came. for the save, and everyone at the time thought this was like blasphemy having a Porsche build SUV. But if you see now, Lamborghini has an SUV, and other folks, sedans are kind of gone. Everyone's talking about crossovers and SUVs, so I'm happy that the Cayenne came. In 1993, they sold 3,000, but a few years later, they were selling, in the tens of thousands. The Cayenne really saved the company. And since then, SUVs have sold a lot. I think it's still the best-selling car at Porsche, and they're really capable. Lately I've been looking at off-roaders and overland vehicles built on the Cayenne with the all-wheel drive and the air suspension, and they're still pretty cheap. So if you can't get into a 911, maybe you can get into a Cayman. If you're looking at a two-door. If you need something like a family hauler, there's the Panamera, but they're still fairly expensive. But you can get a used mid 2000s Cayenne for $10,000. Of course, maintenance isn't going to be cheap like with all used Porsches, but at least you'll get into the brand. And the current models right now, they have the 718, also known as the Cayman and the Boxster. There's the 992 series of the 911. There's the Taycan, which I just mentioned. It's the electric vehicle. There's the Panamera. There's the Macan, and the Cayenne. And then within each one of these, there's also different trim levels. Like the S, the turbo. So there's quite a bit to choose from within each one. And right now the Boxster is probably the cheapest one of all. And then there's some 911 versions like the GT3 RS that are pretty expensive, and then the Taycan's probably up there as well. Macan's slightly smaller than the Cayenne, and then the Panamera is like the four-door sedan. If you look at the Taycan, it came out in 2020. It's their 6th model line. They had 5 for quite a bit. It's beautiful. It's really looks like a combination of a Panamera if you look at the front, and a 911. It's their first ever electric vehicle. 152,000 for the turbo, 186,000 for the Turbo S. Insane electric car, 0 to 60 times, 2.6 miles. Top speed 162 miles per hour. The Taycan got some news or some bad press that the range wasn't that great. The EPA said the range is less than what the manufacturer claimed, but there's been a lot of real world testing, like done by like Motor Trend, Edmunds, and they found that the if you drive just normal conditions, that Porsche actually estimated or under advertised what they can actually do, and the cars were going for a longer ranges, like 300 miles. So I think for the performance, of course, if you go all out, you're not going to get anywhere near that number. It'll probably be a third to a quarter of it, but it doesn't seem like anybody's worried, especially Porsche, and I've seen quite a few of these around. They seem to be selling well. There's a few other awesome models out there. So the 356, and this it's the bottom one on the left, the red one, that for some people might look like a Carmen Ghia. It's not what most people think of as a Porsche. They think of a 911. So if they're not really sure what that is the 356. Then you have the 959, the one on the top, the silver one. This was this was probably the most expensive car that they had made. These were imported by folks like Bill Gates, some guys with deep pockets, because to do homologation and to get these certified in the U.S., they had to really jump through hoops, bring them over as display only, and then try to get them so that they can drive. You got the Carrera GT, which every single one I've ever seen has caught my attention. Simply beautiful. And then the 1967 911 Targa, the one on the bottom. I mean, Targa, before it was really you have a hardtop or you have a full convertible. Then the Targa came out, similar to the Carrera GT, where only a portion of the roof came down, so it's still sturdy, keeps out a lot of the noise, and then you can go almost full hardtop by just popping on either a solid piece, which the Porsche have, or other vendors had like a T-top where it was two pieces, but they still had a solid roof down the middle. If we look at some more awesome models, there's the 917. That's the one on the top with the Golf livery. Amazing race car. There's the 550 RS Spider. Of course, the 356 Speedster. There's a few of these that are famous, like the ones like James Dean had, and the ones that are missing and pieces pop up every once in a while and go for crazy money at auctions. There's the 928 GTS. That's a front engine car. This was the fastest production car when it came out. This is the car that got me hooked. I had a little toy 928 with the pop-up headlights. It was battery operated. This was like in early mid 80s, and I just loved the way the car looked. It didn't really look like anything on the road. None of the Porsche cars look like anything on the road. If you see a 911, you'll know it's a 911. If you see a 928 or even a 944, and even the 924s, you'll know what they are. If you see a 914, people always, not many Porsche people are fans of 914s, but if you see one, you'll know exactly what it is. So these are all pretty cool models of what Porsche's done over the years. If we look at motorsports, so Porsche, I'm a Formula One fan. Porsche really doesn't do anything in Formula One, but they're in motorsports all over the place. They have 19 outright wins in the 24 hours of Le Mans. They're currently the world's largest race car manufacturer. I mean, if you look at even their road cars, there are some that are specifically kind of made for track. I mean, they're made for track, but they can also be driven on the road. In 2006, they built 195 race cars for various international motorsports, and they just look amazing in all liveries. There's the Martini and Rossi, there's the Golf. I mean, every single one I see, they just look like works of art. In 2007, Porsche were building no fewer than 275 dedicated race cars. So they had some prototypes. They had, just amazing. Just check out other YouTube videos, and you'll see just all sorts of racing with various flavors of Porsches. They got the GT3 Cup cars, just amazing. So I think you can see how the non-racing daily vehicles have funded the motorsport side of the business, and then the motorsport side has they've developed technology that they put back into just the road/track cars. There's also a lot of third-party Porsche rebuilders or vendors, and Porsche recently has had some legal issues with them. They didn't want them to use the branding, but some of the ones I really like are the Singers. So there's the one on the bottom is probably one of my favorite ones. There's Roof, there's Gimbala, there's a bunch of other ones. The one on the top, the Roof, the yellow, I think it's the Yellowbird. It's probably one of the most famous ones. I'm not really a big fan of the Gimbala with the Ferrari-ish fenders, but I appreciate the work that goes into taking an amazing vehicle and trying to make it even cooler than that. And then, of course, there's some of the newer ones, the Gunter Werks, the Magnus Walker, RWB, and they do some really cool stuff, from going full carbon fiber to slamming them and having the wide fenders in the back. I mean, they just, every single one to me, it looks like a work of art. Even the ones that are simple and clean, appreciate the clean lines. The ones that are slammed and they just each are unique, even though 911, the actual way it looks hasn't changed from day one, but there's just, you can spend hours looking at different versions. And there's also if you go to Singer actually sells a book that I have that goes through the process of how they take a kind of stock 911 and convert it into a $500,000 Singer commission, and the process is amazing. It's just the attention to detail that these resellers or these third-party manufacturers are doing. It's awesome. For a car that's already great stock, imagine the enjoyment you get when you see all the work and the detail that's gone into these vehicles. The most expensive one that's ever been sold, I created these slides a couple months ago. I've just been waiting for the right time to create this video, but the most expensive ever sold at auction was 1970 Porsche 917K. It sold for $14 million. And if they sell it today, it'd probably go for way more. This is the Golf liveried. It originally was a test vehicle at Le Mans. It's probably the most famous Porsche in the world. Anyone who sees it, I've seen this car a million times. I've had, dozens of conversations about this one specific car. It was featured in Steve McQueen's racing movie, Le Mans. It's got that 4.5 liter air-cooled 12-cylinder engine that you can see on the top right. Just amazing. Let's see. It was restored, and then at 2017 in Pebble Beach, not too far away from here, it was auctioned off. It was a barn find, so after the movie was made, it was sold and sat for 20 years. So imagine having a vehicle worth $14 million just sitting in the yard or in a barn for 20 years, then restoring it, enjoying it for a little bit, then selling it. I mean, it looks cool. The value probably is gone up. I'll probably have to take a look at it. And with that, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit something. Thanks a lot.